All right, we are back for episode 66 of Digital Divination. So, Jason, how you doing?
Yes. I'm doing okay. Keeping busy, of course. How are
Mhm,
you?
mhm. Yeah, been busy as well. I just went back to teaching this past week, and so kind of getting them back to the mode of going in and prepping for class and talking to the students and all those sorts of. How
Yeah,
are
yeah,
things
yeah.
at Renegade?
Yeah, just real busy. I gotta say, there's a lot to do, and stuff that's just sort of waiting for me to get it done, basically.
Mhm,
At this
mhm.
point.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm a big football fan and I'm a Seahawks fan, and I don't know if you
Hmm.
know what happened. They got pretty much destroyed by the San Francisco 49ers today. I was not surprised. They made some youthful mistakes and things, but it was still disappointing. Hopefully, it's a good learning experience for 'em.
Are there
They
a
and
lot
all
of
they
like young? Sorry, are there a lot of
yeah,
like
yeah, they have
younger
a lot of young
players?
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of young guys and a lot of young mistakes, but their defense is not looking very good, and they're off. They just look bad today, in
Mm.
comparison to last week. So, you know, I try not to get too invested in them, so I don't get too down or too up. But it's still a little disappointing.
I
Are you into
saw.
sports at all?
I'm not really into sports that
Yeah,
much, I would say. My stepdad will always tell me about, my college team, the University of Delaware Blue Hens, who
yeah,
they're playing, and,
yes,
"Oh, your Blue Hens are doing this." I'm like, "I don't know
yeah.
anything about the Blue Hens except for that they have a very interesting mascot."
Well, I cut you off there. You were going to ask something else?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I actually, saw some people today in person, an
Oh,
amazing, I know,
whoa!
uh uh, Alex Agunis was in town,
I did not
and
know that.
yeah, and well, I mean, as of we're recording this, he still is. And Dustin Knight was
Yeah,
the two
yeah.
of them were sort of around. Dustin sort of kind of lives around.
Right, right.
But yeah, well, we just went. I didn't. They're staying kind of actually pretty close to me right now, and so we just sort of, oh, let's just go get ice cream. They have middle of the afternoon, and I'll just say hi, so we can walk around. Not have to go into any
Yeah,
place really. Or
yeah, yeah.
and Luis joined us too. Luis Loza joined us, so
Oh,
it
nice.
was a good seeing some people. Some people I haven't seen since the last PaizoCon, and then
Yeah,
some Luis who I would see a little more often. But I talk to him every 2 weeks because we have a game together.
right.
But I
Mhm.
haven't seen his face in a while. We don't often have our cameras on, so that was nice. A little hour long break in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a little no direction get together.
A little bit of a no direction get
Yeah.
together, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to get on Alex for not telling me he was in town now because
Uh-oh.
bad.
Well, don't
I was out of town for most of the
okay.
day, and I imagine I'll have to talk with you afterwards about why he was here because I have some.
Oh,
So
fair enough. Yeah.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Last time we talked about making and naming characters, and somebody complained that we it was like took us till like after minute 36 to talk about naming characters. So
Oh,
I guess
people really wanna know how we name characters, that's
I
interesting.
yeah, and it's like, well, we don't have any super
I
tricks,
mean,
but
yeah.
anyway. So when I title things, I got to be more careful now about saying
Mm.
the parts and things. This one, so we talked about making initial characters there, and I thought
Mhm.
could talk about some about making high level characters, and then a little bit about high level play, and maybe you can talk some about development challenges when
Oh, yeah.
you're developing for a higher level Starfinder play and stuff. How's that
Yeah,
sound?
definitely. That sounds great.
Well, so last time I talked in a lot of detail about how I make characters. I'm gonna actually let you start
Ooh.
and talk a little bit about how you go about making a higher level character, not a starting character, but something
Right.
a little bit higher up.
Something that you're starting the game at 16th level, not you haven't played.
Yes.
This is not about leveling up until you get to 16th, right? This is like, "Oh, you gotta make a
Right.
16th level character." Oh, oof, okay. I mean, like, well, for me, I would say that the sort of concepts are not much different. I kind of think about like, what do I want to play? Who is it? And who they are, and where it fits in with the party and that kind of stuff. But after that, I think I tend to try to work a little backwards. I would say if there's something
Hmm, okay,
pretty high level that I want to get, I definitely wanna have. It's like, "Oh, I gotta have this." I mean, if it's like an item or whatever, that's just I spend the money on it. But if there's like a higher level feat or a specific high level class ability, you wanna look at that one first because they'll often have prerequisites.
right.
And so it's best to sort of like, oh, well, now I need to make sure that as I level up. I mean, I sort of don't necessarily like build a character that way, but just as for the concept, start there and then be like, I need
Mhm,
to get like all these other prerequisites to make sure, it's something that's sort of, I'm trying to think of one that is be like, have a lot, but, I'm just thinking a lot of the Pathfinder first edition feats that might have like,
right.
9 prerequisites or something like that, or prerequisites that have prerequisites and so forth and so on.
Mhm,
I don't think Starfinder has too many of those. I don't if I don't recall correctly. But if they are, they're probably in the later-ish books. But and then just do the usual mechanical stuff of make a first level character, and then just sort of making sure, and then get the basics down, and then not necessarily level them up each time, but just sort of like, this is it, and then, okay, this is where what the charts are. Just look at that and like, oh, this is the difference
right.
between base stack bonuses and save bonuses and stuff like that, and just boost them up to that. But in a way, uh, uh, kind of starting off by saying, making sure you have the base of the stats, and then and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's real similar to what I do. One of the things I find is that I need to keep track of feats, and
Hmm.
I need to keep track of if it's like a mechanic or certain things that have tricks that come at certain level points.
Yeah.
Because it says them, if you go to the archives and look at the table and says, okay, this is what you get each level. But when you're saying I'm making a 16th level character, it's like, well, you didn't go through all those intervening steps.
Yeah.
Making sure that you get the proper number. You don't get too many, you don't get too little. And so what I'll do is I'll write down, okay, so if it's mechanic tricks and you get those, even levels, I'll put this mechanic trick 2, 4, 6, 8, 10,
Hmm.
12,
Hmm.
14, 16. Their feats. This is feat 1, 3, 5, 7, 9,
Right. The
11,
level.
13, 15. And so I'll just have those kind of laid out. And then I'll go, like you, I'm looking to see if there's prerequisites and things, and then I'll start kind of filling those out. And I'll start with simpler, like doing the feats. I'll start with the simpler feats,
Hmm.
the kind of low level ones that, like mobility and things
Right.
that you might always take. And then there's some that are kind of behind, like a BAB
Hmm.
barrier, right? So you have to have a minimum BAB for penetrating strike and things like that. So or for like, there's another one for reflecting something or another, right? So
Yeah.
minimum, right? Minimum BAB levels for doing those. So that I do some kind of organizational things, but I'm a lot like you. I look to say, what kind of character do I want this to end up as?
Yeah.
And so if it's, I'm thinking like when so Ron was working on his book for Devastation arc, he had the final book, which is 18 to 20.
Yeah.
And so this is like 2 years ago, where our group actually play tested a couple things in there so he could get the power right.
Yeah. Level. Right.
And
Yeah.
so we had characters that we had played up to level 12 through Dead Sons, and so he said, "Well, let's level them all up to 18." And so we kind of took a starting point there and said, "Okay,
Mm.
here's the changes between 12 and 18. Make sure we get those, scale up everything." And so that was
Hmm.
relatively simple, and you can buy new equipment and everything. When you're
Right.
starting from scratch, I think that makes it a little bit more complicated. Um, and you can also end up being overpowered because you're missing all the upgrading of equipment and everything as you go level to level.
Yeah, you're just buying,
Yeah.
or yeah, whatever you
Mm,
got with the money you get at 16th level. I mean, that's true. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
that's tough.
So, so I kind of like that I'm not wasting, much on those sorts of things. But yeah. So kind of coming up with a basic concept and saying, okay, well, for this This is what I want to be able to do. One of the things you have to decide though is, do you want to multi-class,
Yeah.
right, for something like that? And for me, if I'm doing high level and I'm thinking I'm not going to take it all the way to 20, I don't worry about taking, dip into soldier for, a Solarian or envoy or something like that.
Hmm.
But if I think I want to go all the way to 20, there are a lot of most of the classes have a level 20 kind of ability thing that
Oh
you
yeah.
want to have access to. So
Yeah.
that's another consideration.
Yeah, that's true. Those capstone abilities are always they're big and a little ways game breaking, but on purpose.
Right.
That they're just sort of meant to be like this is the thing that you do when you get to level 20, just to reward the people who stick to the same class for
Mhm.
20 whole levels. Yeah, I don't think I much consider myself a multi-classer when I play these games. I should just tend to stick to the one class. Maybe, an archetype or something like that to sort of flavor it up a little bit or
Right.
when they exist at a prestige class, but mostly I'm just sort of straight shot down the line.
You mentioned prestige classes. I actually like those a lot. I think that would be
Yeah.
a kind of neat thing if we had that where you could get, 10 levels of something and you'd max out a really cool ability from that. So you're not
Mm.
missing out on the capstone of your original when you will multi-class as much. You won't feel that missing as much because you get a
Oh
new
yeah.
capstone. That's really cool.
I mean, it's an interesting design space that is just sort of like here's a new class that you can only get at not right away, and you need to meet certain prerequisites and stuff like that. I think they're definitely fun if they're more fun if they're more connected to the flavor and the lore of the world.
Right.
Right. We got all the archetypes that are sort of whether or not you'd still use both of them would be kind of tricky. But archetypes are just kind of a lot of ways general. In some cases not, but some of them very general. But then like the the big ones, the sort of if you wanted to do something that maybe takes some stuff um like a battle flower, that
Mhm.
particular archetype probably maybe would have been cooler as a prestige class if those things existed because it is a very specific thing, right? A very specific niche, I would say, and a
Mhm.
lot of the times those prestige classes were pretty niche.
Mhm. Yeah, there's an archetype that has one neat thing on it, higher level, that I really like. There's nothing else I really care much for it. I don't remember the one it is, but it's where you can gain fortification, right?
Oh, and your
Yeah, so
body?
yeah, fortification of your armor, basically. It's kind of
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
and it
Okay.
can grow. There's a couple different ways to get fortification, and it's like that's just such a neat thing to be able to have a chance to have a crit not
Hmm.
crit you,
Not hit you. Yeah,
higher
yeah.
level. You know, Other than
I
that,
mean that. Yeah, fair enough. There's one of the things, yeah, one of those high level things that are
yeah,
just fun, just to be like, oh no, it it can be a little frustrating when you're a player and that kind of stuff happens to you. I gotta say, when
yeah,
someone's like, oh, you don't penetrate the spell resistance, you've kind of your turn is over, and
right,
that's it. But
right, yeah,
and or your crit doesn't happen, so I can see why some of that's you might want to move away from that in the game design thing, but also when you have it as a player, it's pretty awesome. Like anything that's like blur displacement too. It's just like, no, you don't hit me this round, because the GM's rolling all bad on the percentile or something.
right. Well, that kind of reminds me. You mentioned a couple, displacement kind of spell based thing. The other neat thing you get when you get to higher levels is there's some really, really cool armor and weapons and
Hmm.
fusions you can get.
Yeah, yeah.
And other higher level artifacts or magical items, and so that's something that is kind of neat. One of the limits you have is really expensive.
Oh,
You
sure.
know, yeah. So the scaling. Do you know the scaling of cost for armor? What's that? Is that a uh,
I don't know the math. I gotta say,
okay?
I don't know what that was calculated on. I just sort of have the chart, right? That's
Yeah,
like
it just
this
kind of
level
goes
item
up
should
and
cost about this
accelerates
much.
fast. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm. And it doesn't
Um,
seem like the gold you get keeps up with it.
Well, we try. I
or
mean, so we
the
try to be
yeah,
like, hey, your credits,
credits.
or here are the items that
Yeah,
giving out stuff. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff too. Ends up being, we talk about high level magic items and high level artifacts, stuff that's sort of interesting and weird. Makes great treasure. Doesn't make
right,
necessarily make great buying stuff fodder. Like shop
right,
going out and buying it. But if you get it, hey, it's pretty cool, and I've got this pretty thing that makes me do
right,
something awesome. But
right,
I would never go out and buy it because it costs
right,
too much, and I
right.
really want to buy a better armor or a better weapon or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that's the tough thing, and when you're playing an adventure, you kinda some of them have you can shop and get something up to this level thing,
Hmm.
or you find it an armory, like there was an armory in one of the books, and you have a percentage chance of finding things at different levels. You just, "Oh, you want this?" Well, you look around and let me roll, "Oh, yeah, there happens to be one in here." So that's kind of a one way to kinda get specifically something that matches
Hmm.
onto you. Otherwise, you get drops and, we're playing, Devastation Arc now, and I think I'm level 17, and we have 2 heavy armor wearing, uh party members.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
usually at any given level, only one set of heavy armor is dropping.
Yeah.
So it's like, "Oh, okay, we alternate or whatever." Whereas you get lots of light armor because you have lots of light armor, wearing people.
That's true. That's true. It's tricky. It's a tough balance. It's always been a tough balance.
Yeah. And right before we got started here, I was actually editing episode 10 of Devastation Arc that we have going on,
Mhm.
and I actually have to post it here for tomorrow, so I got to finish it up after we're done here. And yeah, one of the things I notice about high level adventures is the encounters seem to take a lot longer than
Yeah.
lower level.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Even though the dice do like get bigger, the pile, the hit point pools are getting bigger, and
Right,
it doesn't necessarily. I think that the because you're getting more dice, there's that more of at least for damage, right? There's more variability, right,
right,
in a pool of dice, and so, but yet this damages the hit point are scaling for like always kind of an averagey rolls, but you don't always with those average rolls. And sometimes you roll really low a lot, and it just feels like you're just wailing away at a brick wall or something. And like you were saying too, like you have all these different abilities and spells and powers and stuff to pick
yeah.
from every turn. I can see how it could get long.
Yeah, I think part of it is, figuring out what you want to do and being ready to do it, just like any game thing.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like if you go on like me, I go on these big bad roll streaks. It's like,
Yeah.
man, I miss, and we got 6 players in there, so I gotta wait, for 6 people to go, plus all
Mm.
the critters, and
Oh
so
goodness.
at the higher level, we're getting a lot more creatures thrown at us. There's a
Mm.
lot of them to go, and then, "Oh, wait, here it is 15 minutes later, now it's my turn again. Okay, what am I gonna do?" Um, so it does slow it down because of the complexity,
Yeah. 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 It's just and it's an unfortunate artifact of this kind of play. It's just that there's just, a lot. So just generally a lot. Well, just high level often just means more of
right?
things, more stuff to think about.
Well, it seems like from a design perspective, it's important to actually balance, like, having more versus, if you have one big bad that hits you, right? You get
Mhm.
something that's a CR 17 that's going to hit you. Well, we've run into some high level stuff, and if they crit you, they're doing like 120, sometimes 150 points of damage.
Mhm. Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's like that's something. They do a full attack, they can take out a character just with that. Versus if you have multiple smaller ones, it kind of distributes that damage a little bit more, presuming maybe they don't gang up.
Mhm.
But that also tends to slow things down a little bit because then you have multiple targets to focus on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the constant specter of action economy at any
Yeah,
level. Really, is that when you have one thing as a baddie, one baddie, it gets to go. And then you've got 4 to 6 turns of so 4 to 6 characters, each taking their own turn,
right,
doing focusing on one person, while the baddies only gets to maybe hit 2 people, maybe 3 people with, like, a spell or stuff like that. So, those fights kind of do tend to go faster, um, because the bad guy doesn't usually last as long as you would like when they're the big beefy bad. They don't get to do all their cool stuff sometimes, but, yeah, when then you have more people, they get to do more stuff. So it's tough I think that's kind of tough to balance at any level, to be honest, and, it's just that at high level, things can get even it's more skewed, I think, because you wanna say, "Well, this is they gotta hit big. They're big bad guys, and they're level
Mhm.
18." And, you throw them, to do it, like, for it to be we challenge it, and you guys are you said 17, right? So, you're
Right.
you're probably fighting if you're fighting one, like, CR-19 creature, which is
Right.
definitely gonna, like because there's but even between, like, 16, 17, 18, 19, those levels, the numbers kinda get a little exponentially bigger each one. So the difference between a, level 17, level 19, and maybe like a level 1 and level 3, like that difference is more noticeably felt.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely in their, like, their ability to hit, their modifiers
mhm.
to hit are like, when we're looking at them, when the rolls are coming out, it's like they're rolling a 3 and hitting us, and we gotta roll an
Yeah.
11 to hit them, those
Yeah, yeah,
sorts of
yeah.
things. But what are some of the considerations as you're developing something, high level that you have to take in that might be different than if it's a medium or low level?
Right, yeah. I mean, like, saying that there's all these extra the powers in terms of adventure design, and we can talk about some of the
Right.
other design stuff too, but in terms of adventure design, there are I always wanna say that, like, at this point, if you most likely have been playing since first level, if you get up to these high level campaigns, right? The the way to you have to challenge players becomes slightly more difficult because they have access to a lot more things. But the trick is not to try to take those things away or to negate them in any way. Like
Mhm.
the trick is to try to think of something that almost requires those things, like, we talk a little, about, flight and when that kind of comes into play for player characters at high level. You gotta assume kind of that, like, most likely people are gonna be flying around doing all sorts
Mhm.
of different types of movements and stuff like that. So you try to figure out a way to be like, oh, to make it challenging to have a room or, an area that's got lots of little bits that you can fly around to, and that's where the monsters are doing the exact same thing, flying around. So you gotta
Mhm.
compensate and sort of meet them at their level. That doesn't always work in practice. Gotta say, sometimes it's just you gotta for story purposes, you gotta be like, well, there's a big snowstorm, and so or like teleportation that's the other one that comes
Right.
after flight is teleportation. How do you lock that down? And you don't try not to, but sometimes you kind of got to a little bit. And it's unfortunate when, but like, well, this is an area is covered in the weird teleportation thing that messes you up if you try it. Um, but when it comes down to like maybe like fighting someone or like who's gonna maybe like it's like they'll teleport away if there's any kind of like way to shut down the players' stuff that the players can shut down that shutdown, I think is one thing to
Mm.
think. If they
Mhm.
play smart enough or roll right or investigate the right thing, they can be like, well, I know this guy's gonna try he can tell, maybe you learn about the baddies can throw the switch, he's gonna teleport away, and that's gonna also at the same time throw up this anti-teleportation field. Maybe there's a way that we can sabotage that field so that we can chase the bad guy afterwards, even if he does get away. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's I think that's the one of the biggest adventure hurdles for high level play.
What about, like, for skill challenges and stuff? Do you just scale up the numbers, or do you try to
This
make it a little different?
Yeah, I mean sometimes it's just the easiest thing to do is to scale up the numbers a little bit, but I'm sure you've already come across a lot of things with Starfinders that some certain classes can really just sort of blow through the certain DCs and whether or not you want to try to challenge. I mean, that's always the case with like any game where one player might end up to making a character that sort of outclasses everybody else in a certain field.
Mhm.
And I think for that, it is not the quote unquote solution is not to make it harder for the whole party just to challenge that one person. I think the solution is to sort of say, oh, just sort of understand that this person's going to this class, this character or whatever it might be, is going to kind of shine here. And if you're running your own stuff, the trick is to try to figure out ways to make the other people shine.
Right.
Narrative wise, you can hit people's backstories. You could do something
Mhm.
with their character that makes them sort of gives them the spotlight. The when you're writing an adventure for print, it becomes a little trickier, where you've got to just sort of like maybe throw in, the numbers, maybe sometimes boost them up a little bit so that operative is the only one that can succeed, and but that, or like, and make it so that the operative can sort of help other people. When you do succeed really well, you actually get to help someone else. So you use your normal
Right,
DCs and
right,
then just
right.
sort of like give a little bonus for when they do really, really good. Makes
Mhm.
everyone, I think, feel a little better than the other way around, where like only the operative can succeed, no one else can do it.
Yeah, you were
Mhm.
mentioning that, and when I was leveling up for this, pretest that we're doing, or playtest we're doing for Ron, I had an operative, and,
Mm,
18th level operative has an awful lot of skill points,
yeah.
especially if have, ability modifiers, put some into intelligence and stuff, and so one of the things I very intentionally did is not I could max out, like, everything but 2. It's so I said, "Okay, well, we have an envoy that likes to do a lot of envoy stuff, so I'm not gonna max out my diplomacy,
Yeah.
and we have a mystic that likes to do mystic stuff, so I'm not gonna max out mysticism." So,
Hmm.
basically, I could do a lot of the other things, and I didn't always chime in to do them because I know other
Hey,
people
yeah.
like to do them, and very intentionally, I could not do things to allow them to shine, uh
Yeah.
because otherwise, it's like, and I'm looking at this, it's like, I could be good at everything but stuff that we don't care about, and that just wouldn't be fun for other players.
Yeah, I mean, that's very good, very, very considerate of you, John, to be that kind of player. And hopefully, everyone is playing with those types of people who are like, "Oh,
Right.
I know when it's my turn, and if I happen to roll really good, and when it's my turn and I roll great, and everyone's going to be happy, but I'm not going to be like, well, I have a better bonus than try to butt in to do
Right.
everything else." I guess that's an interesting consideration of high level play from the player's perspective, is to say if you happen to have that character that is maybe slightly more overpowered than the rest of the group, sit back. It'll be fine. It's going to be fine. And if you need to,
Mhm.
if things get so bad that you need to be the one to jump in and rescue people, then maybe that's where you get your spotlight. But let other people share the table with them. Um, I haven't really felt like I've ever really had that problem in, like, home groups,
Right.
anyway, 'cause I feel like I've gotten really lucky with the people that I've played with. Didn't even really occur to me that much to think about what you could do as a player.
Yeah, we have a home group where we're playing through, Horizons of the Vast now,
Mhm.
and, so it's 6 players, and if 4 players can play, then I still run it, and the issue, though, is because everybody's very careful not to step on somebody else's toes.
Oh,
When
yeah.
somebody's missing, like, "Oh, Ron was out. Ron ran a marathon, and he can't make it in today.
Sure, yeah.
He's the only person that has any decent mysticism in our group." Well, we're in trouble there,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of the trade-off of everybody trying to make sure, they focus on something that other people focus is then don't have a lot of backup or it's really low level backup.
That's true, yeah. I mean, and then you're in that case, you're running into a little bit into the running something that's been pre-written, right? In a
Right,
game where maybe you were making things up as you went along. Oh, Ron's not going to be here today. I'm going to
right.
throw that
Oh, yeah,
mysticism challenge at them today because
right.
they're not going to be able to solve it. So I can maybe push that back or shunt it aside or think of some
Mhm,
other solution, right? And so that puts a little bit of work on the GM when you've got that really tightly knit group that is always covering each other's butts, to when that important link is missing.
mhm.
But that's why we play these games. I think is to
Yeah.
for me that's a sort of it sets up a bit of a challenge as a GM to solve and help everyone have a good time regardless of life and whatnot.
So you've been a dev on a lot of different, AP lines, and
Hmm.
you've written a bunch. What levels do you prefer to work on? Do you like the low level, the medium level, or the high level?
I think probably the lowish to medium, I would say, before it gets into double digits,
Yeah.
is kinda like the stuff that I think I like the most because you can it's just sort of as a writer anyway, you get a handle, you have a handle on what kind of everyone can.
Mhm.
Once you get up to the higher levels, you just couldn't possibly think of everything. And in a way, the longer a game is out, the longer a game like Starfinder or Pathfinder is out, the more stuff that exists out there that you couldn't
Right.
possibly necessarily keep a handle on spells and whatnot. But that's why, in general, you're hopefully, if you're a writer, you've got a developer who's kind of at least thought of a little bit here and there about like, oh, I happen to know that this burrowing spell or whatever might make this adventure trivial. And granted,
Mhm.
there's only going to be like a 5% chance that a particular group has that for that, and is playing this
Yeah.
adventure. Sometimes you just got to roll the dice when that happens, and sometimes you just got to put it in there, and then they'll be like, well, it's going to be up to the GM. There's a lot of, despite the fact that pre-written adventures try to do as much as they can to sort of help you run the adventure. Sometimes you're just going to have to be like, well, that doesn't work for me, or that doesn't work for my group. I'm going to have to flip it around. I think I kind of personally decided to do something like that pretty recently with the first Outlaws of Alkenstar adventure. Where
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I think I just want to. I think it'll be more fun if I just kind of flip these two parts, and it's didn't really make much of a difference in terms of like the narrative of the story, but it was just like, oh, they'll probably enjoy this before this happens. So, or I really wanted
Right.
to get to this part before this part anyway. So, and luckily, it's to say nothing wrong with the adventure, of course, but it was just sort of a, you got to make it your own.
Yeah. I've had to not had, I've been able to develop a lot of spells and
Mhm.
feats and pieces of equipment, all kinds of stuff for various levels, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, they want you, the developers say, hey, we need to spread all the way, the whole
Yeah.
gamut. And yeah, one of the things I find that's easier is like 5 to 8, 5 to 9. There's
Mhm.
lots of cool stuff you can do there. It's not overpowered. Um, and there's enough unique things you can bring in. The lower levels, there's tons and tons of stuff. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh man, there's all these
True.
things you can already do. So it's a little bit harder to come up with something cool and novel that isn't already
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
and that doesn't go up to, supplant
Right.
something that's higher level. The really high level stuff is hard,
Yeah. Yeah,
hard,
yeah.
to think, if I'm making an 18th level feat or ability or piece of equipment, it's got to be really good,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can look at, this something that just scales up a lot of damage or gives a lot of utility for something, but to come up with something really cool at high level, that's a real challenge. I think that's a real
Yeah. I think that I totally agree. You've got, your 6 level spells and high level equipment that needs to be worth the
yeah.
bang for the buck.
Yeah, and then you gotta compare, so, like, when I'm putting stuff together, I compare it against, what can other classes do
Mhm.
at this level, either with spells or abilities, and is this on par or does it suck? Usually, it's not way better, right? Usually, it's
Yes. I mean,
one
definitely
of
not.
those 2,
Yeah.
do that. And similarly, I'll say, I also like playing and running that 5 to 8, 5 to 9 level, and, um,
Yeah.
because it's really easy. I know all the I everything
Yeah.
from, level 9 down stuff, I know that pretty well and
Yeah.
can just go in and run it, not a big deal. When he gets to a higher level, I have to, as a GM, I actually got to rely on the players,
Mhm.
to tell me, "Oh, so you have this
Mm.
really cool 13th level ability to pick. Oh, so what's that do?" You know? I've
Yeah.
heard of it,
Enlighten
but
me.
I've never really
Yeah.
seen it.
Yeah,
So tell me
exactly.
about it. And so I kind of get to learn more about like that. Um, playing it, like I'm playing this 17th level Vanguard. Oh man, there is so many things I can do. I have to have a cheat sheet printed out with all the abilities, everything that they can do, and it's like 6 pages. That's my
Oh
cheat
boy.
sheet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that when it's my turn, I can find the right thing amongst all these related abilities to do. So it's
Fair.
cool to be able to do that, but it makes it much more complicated.
Definitely, definitely. Can
What
I,
about you? Oh, go ahead.
well, I just wanted to sort of point out another thing that sort of was
Yeah,
a consideration for the Devastation arc adventure path, as we were like, we need to do the high level stuff, right? We'd already
right.
done a bunch of 1 to 12, 1 to 13 ish, and I had to sit down. I sit down and be like, okay, well, this should go to 20, right? That's people are going to
Yes.
cry foul if it does not. But the way the sort of things had been spaced out already is that if we had kept the same cadence as the previous Adventure Path volumes, it would not go, it would not, like, we just couldn't reach it. So, it would be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh no, I need 4
Right.
volumes. And it was sort of like, should we try to do 4? Should we just sort of like figure out a way? And I decided that it would probably be easiest to kind of cram the extra content kind of like earlier on. Not
Mhm.
cram exactly, but just sort of like, well, squeeze this in here because assuming that up at the high levels, you're going to need more text, more space for text for stat blocks and other sorts of considerations. That's why that one is sort of skewed to be only the normal length of whatever. But for all that too, I was like, well, what if we just gave the adventure 8 more pages every volume,
Yeah.
and just cut one of our sort of back matter articles at that point,
Yeah.
and that's not what we ended up doing, and I think it ended up working out okay. And it was also just sort of in a way it'd be a small relief to try to not have to fill that space with other things, because it would have to be high level gear
Right.
or high level
Right.
spells or to fit with the theme of the thing. And we got some stuff in there, of course. That is some high level gear and can't remember if there's any actually
Player
like
options too.
magic
I
or
get
anything.
to write some
Yeah, yeah,
for book 5. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Oh no, I'm thinking Horizons of the Vast. I'm sorry, wrong thing.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah.
that is a tricky show, but
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
last volume of
Yeah.
Devastation arc's got to have some player options in
Right.
there. We have to try to put them in every one of them,
Right.
but giving a little more pages to the adventure to make sure that there was room for getting up because I think the first one goes 13, 14, 15, 16 goes up to
Right.
16th level, right? And then it goes 17, 18, 19. No, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, that's what it does.
Yeah.
Now I remember. And so there was a one extra level in there that it was like, okay, well, we'll just have to, because it's a consideration to try to fit in that many encounters so that people can get up to the levels to be there. So,
Mhm.
and and some of it came down to like, well, we might have to throw around some extra story awards XP, just to
Mhm.
make sure that the numbers get hit. But it's been a while since I've looked at that particular AP, so I hope it turned out okay. I remember a
It
lot of things
seems
very distinctly, by the way,
yeah.
and I'm excited for you to get to them, and I want to hear all about it when you do get that high,
Okay.
especially even though you have playtested Ron's adventure, I don't know if you know what's coming exactly.
We don't. He didn't explain he didn't explain a lot of
Yeah, that
stuff,
makes sense.
other than the origin of a certain phrase that's used in book 3. Told
Okay,
us
very
where
good.
that came from.
Very good. I'm
Um,
glad.
which is really cool. It's kind of
Yeah, yeah,
funny,
yeah.
for doing that. No, it's been really good. We're about halfway through book 2 now.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Because Eleanor's
yeah,
playing
so
with
we're
you
at
now, and
17, so
yeah.
we'll get to 18 here, before long. And the book 1 was way different than book 2. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, starting out. So that's been kind of good. And we've really kind of have gotten into our groove. Um, I I kind of have mixed feelings about it. I don't know how much fun I've had with this, relative to, we did Don uh, the first one,
Dead Sons.
Dead Sons. We did Dead Sons, then we did Dawn of Flame as a group.
Mhm.
Now we're doing Devastation Arc as a group. And we had a lot of fun with Dead Sons. We had a lot of fun with most of Dawn of Flame. Actually didn't like Ron's book, book 4, because it was really
Mm.
weird.
Yeah.
Probably know
Fair
why.
enough.
It was okay, but it was like, wow, this is really weird. And he made it really hard, those, the creatures he put in there were really challenging, which is kinda nice. And this one's been kinda neat, but the story, it's been hard for
Mm.
us, I think, to get the story, our minds wrapped around
Yeah.
the story totally. I think we got it, together pretty well what's happening, um, but it's a little bit harder, it's a little bit harder to.
Yeah, I get that. I think that one was a challenge to get a story for as well. It's gotta be, to make a high level. It's gotta be high level. It's gotta feel high level.
Right.
So and then figure out a way to get that story to the players is always a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. And, because I'm playing it, I got the books, I haven't read it because I don't wanna do that till I'm all done, and then I'll take
Yeah,
a
yeah,
look,
yeah.
and I'll probably run it for one of my other groups.
Oh, cool. There you go.
Yeah, but it's been good. You can play if you wanna.
Well, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
I can separate my knowledge. I've done it before in
Yes.
other games and other,
Yeah,
but it's so tricky. It's real tricky to be
yeah.
like, because most of what I end up doing is just kinda sitting back and letting other people
Yeah, that's
m
not as much
make
fun.
play it,
That's
and
much.
it's funny, I can be like, "Aha, here," and then I'll what it would be the best to do to either, like, make a character that's just really, really, like, smart or got a lot of foresight or something like that, that I could be like,
Well,
"I'm
that's
saying
that's
this
what
is my
Ron
character that
did.
I figured this out." Yeah, because he knows what's coming, right?
Yeah, so in our, so, uh, Bisons of the Vast, he made a precog. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right, right, so that he kinda could foreshadow and foretell what's going on. Because I think he wrote the first book of that
He wrote
one,
the first
right?
one, yeah. Do you
Yeah, and
know if
so
he ended
that's.
up reading any of the other books? By
I don't
I
think
know
so.
he probably knows the whole outline. He probably knows the
Yeah, he
general
knows, I mean, because
shape
the
of the
first one
story.
lays out what's
Yeah.
happening,
Well,
um, but he said a lot of stuff had changed even in the book, as I was running it. We'll
okay.
see. But yeah, I'd like to get you in a game. We'll shoot for that, but maybe
Well,
we'll get something that was developed after you left.
I mean, sure.
That's gonna be
Why
a couple
not?
years, just saying
It'll
now,
I know at this point.
it's the
The
cycles, yeah.
Well, the last thing I developed will be out next spring. Not a couple years,
Okay,
only maybe a year.
next spring, okay.
Yeah.
You mean spring 2023 or 2024?
2023, because
Oh, okay,
that would
alright,
be that would be the end of the drift crisis stuff.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
because, I mean, I don't know how soon we're about halfway through that one. Yeah, maybe around spring, we'll be starting something new.
All right. Hit me up.
Heck yeah. Heck
At some point I'll there's there's lots of stuff I don't know everything
yeah,
by heart, of
yeah.
course. I mean, mostly I would say scenario adventures, and
Mhm.
I do know what's kind of like, it's sort of like I do know what the to defy the dragon is about, and I know generally like kind of what happens, but I don't know specifics, I would say.
Alright, well, we'll get you for sure.
Sounds good. Definitely.
Alright. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good times.
Yeah, getting caught up. I'm John.
All right. And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.